I'm 31 years old and up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years, Linda. My younger brother Alex is 29 and has always been the family favorite. To understand the depth of this betrayal and why it hurts so much, I need to share some background about my family and how we got here. Growing up, Alex could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, while I was constantly punished for the smallest mistakes. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or subtle favoritism. It was glaringly obvious and intense. If Alex broke something, I'd get blamed. If he started a fight, I'd be grounded. If we both got straight A's, he'd get a new video game console while I'd just get a pat on the back and a reminder to keep up the good work. Our parents, Tom and Linda, always made excuses for their behavior, saying things like, Alex is younger, he needs more attention, or you're the older one, you should know better, or Alex is just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him. The constant gaslighting and impossible standards made me feel worthless and unwelcome in my own home. As we got older, the favoritism became even clearer. When I was accepted into a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely acknowledged it. But when Alex chose to attend community college, they threw him a huge celebration and bought him a car to get around. Never mind that I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment. I worked 2 jobs and took out loans to support myself through college, while Alex dropped out after 1 semester, claiming that college wasn't for him. Our parents fully supported his decision, praising him for knowing himself and not conforming to societal expectations. They even financed his series of failed business ventures over the years. No matter how much distance I put between myself and my family, they always found a way to bring me back. Holiday dinners were filled with subtle insults and backhanded comparisons. Oh, you're still in that entry-level position? Well, Alex is thinking of starting another business. He's very entrepreneurial. Never mind that I was building a stable career while Alex squandered our parents' retirement money. Despite it all, I tried to maintain a relationship with Alex. He was still my brother. But it was always one-sided. I would reach out, trying to connect, but he'd ignore me or turn the conversation into a competition. If I got a promotion, suddenly he'd have some big opportunity coming his way. If I started dating someone, he'd inevitably be in a serious relationship too. I met Linda when I was trying to reconnect with Alex. She was a friend of one of his short-term girlfriends, and we hit it off right away. Linda was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Smart, funny, kind, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship was everything I had hoped for. For the first time in my life, I felt truly valued and happy. My parents, however, were far from pleased. They made sarcastic comments about how Linda was out of my league and questioned what she saw in me. Alex, on the other hand, started showing an interest in my life. He was always asking about Linda and wanted to know everything about her. At the time, I was just relieved that he seemed to care about something in my life. Looking back, I see the red flags. Linda and I moved in together after a year of dating, and it was amazing. We both had solid careers, traveled, and discussed our future together. I began to believe that I could finally have the life I had always dreamed of, a good career, a loving partner, and maybe even children one day. After 4 years of dating, I proposed to Linda during a quiet dinner at home, delivering a heartfelt speech. I was overjoyed when she said yes. We decided to have a long engagement so we could take our time planning the wedding. We weren't rushing. We had our whole lives ahead of us. Or so I thought. When we told my family about our engagement, their reactions were all over the place. My mother put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that made it clear she didn't mean it. My father barely reacted, mumbling, "Good luck with that," before turning back to the television. Alex, on the other hand, congratulated us, but there was something off about his smile. It was almost predatory. At the time, I dismissed it, attributing it to my own insecurities. The next year was filled with wedding planning and the usual work stress. Linda and I were both working long hours to save up for the wedding and a down payment on a house. We hadn't spent as much time together as we used to, but I figured it was just a phase every couple goes through. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Linda grew more distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts from people she quickly labeled as business friends. She started going out more, coming home late, smelling of wine and cologne. But I trusted her completely and never considered that she might be cheating, let alone with my own brother. About 4 months ago, Linda started acting oddly. She was moody, irritated, and constantly nauseous. I was hopeful she might be pregnant, even though we hadn't been trying. We had talked about having kids one day, and I began imagining nursery colors and baby names. Then, one night, she sat me down with tears in her eyes and dropped the bomb. She was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. I was stunned. We hadn't been intimate for a while due to our busy schedules, but I never suspected she would cheat. When I asked who the father was, she broke down, barely able to speak, and whispered, "It's Alex." I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. "It's Alex?" I repeated, the sound of her name like a knife in my gut. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, she whispered, barely audible, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just happened." I shook my head, the disbelief still holding me in a vice grip. How? How could you do this to me? To us? My voice cracked as the pain began to turn into anger. We've been through so much together. I thought you were the one I could trust, the one who would never hurt me. And now this. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "I never wanted to hurt you. Please understand. It's not what you think. I was confused. I was lost, and Alex, he was there for me when you weren't." I felt the words hit me like a slap. When I wasn't. I've been working, doing everything for us. I've been here, putting in the effort, and you? I stopped myself, feeling the rage build up inside me. "You were with him? Behind my back?" She nodded, barely able to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I know I've ruined everything, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect you to understand, but it just happened." I let out a bitter laugh, though it felt like I was choking on it. "You're right. I don't understand. How could I? I gave you everything, and you threw it away for him." I took a step back, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Her eyes widened in panic as I turned away, pacing. "Please, don't say that. Please. I still love you. I never meant for it to go this far." "Love me?" I spun back toward her, my fists clenched. "How can you love someone when you're betraying them like this? How is that even possible?" My voice grew louder, filled with fury. "You don't get to throw around that word. Not after what you've done." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped away. "Please, let me fix this," she pleaded. "I'll do anything. I'll make it right. I don't want to lose you." I laughed bitterly again, the sting of her words cutting deeper. "You think you can fix this? After everything? No. You've already made your choice, and so have I. You've lost me. You and Alex." My voice shook with rage and betrayal. "You both can have each other." She collapsed onto the couch, her sobs racking her body. "Please, don't leave me. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was selfish, but I love you. Please don't go." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting for something that's already broken. You made your choice, and now I have to make mine. I hope Alex is worth it." I stood there in the middle of the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. Linda was standing a few feet away, looking shattered, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. But all I could focus on was the betrayal, the deceit that had been hidden behind a smile for so long. She took a step toward me, her voice trembling. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded. "It wasn't what you think. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." She looked down, clearly struggling to find the right words. "It started at the engagement party. Alex said things to me. He made me feel like you didn't care, like maybe I could do better. He told me I deserved more than what you were giving me, and I was confused." "Confused?" I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. "Confused about what?" "You were engaged to me, Linda. We were supposed to be building a life together, and instead, you were lying to my face and sleeping with my brother?" I could feel the tears threatening to fall, but I couldn't let them. I wouldn't let her see how much this was destroying me. Her lips trembled as she stepped closer, her hand reaching out for me. "Please, I'm sorry. I made a horrible mistake. I was weak. It wasn't supposed to go on this long, but I didn't know how to stop it. Alex, he said all the right things. He made me feel special, wanted, like I wasn't being seen, like you didn't understand me. That's what this is about." I laughed bitterly, feeling like I was about to explode. "You felt unseen? So, you went behind my back and slept with my brother? And now you want me to feel sorry for you?" I shook my head, a dry laugh escaping my throat. "You're pathetic." Linda's eyes welled up with fresh tears, and she reached out again, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I swear. I love you. I still love you. It was a mistake. All of it. I was confused. I let my insecurities get the best of me, and Alex took advantage of that." I stepped back, the anger in me shifting to something darker. Insecurities? I asked coldly. You think your insecurities are enough to justify what you did? You destroyed everything, Linda. Everything we had. And for what? So, you could feel good about yourself for a few months? My voice cracked at the end, and I immediately regretted it. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered, breaking down, her voice barely audible. I thought it was just a phase, but I couldn't stop. I was scared, and Alex, he made it feel so easy. I wanted to stop, but I didn't know how. You think I should just forgive you? I demanded, my anger flaring again. You've been lying to me for months, Linda. You betrayed me over and over again. You wore my engagement ring, stood beside me, all the while sleeping with my brother. And now, after everything, you expect me to just forgive you and pretend it never happened? My voice was shaking, but it wasn't from sadness. It was pure fury. I know I don't deserve it, she said, wiping her face with her sleeve, her words coming out in a whisper. But I'm asking you, please, can we fix this? Can we try again? I'll do anything. I love you, and I know I messed up, but please, don't leave me. I stood there in silence, my chest heaving as I processed everything she was saying. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had trusted, had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way possible. I could feel my heart cracking, but I couldn't let it break. Not for her. No, I said quietly, my voice steady but filled with disgust. I can't do this anymore. I can't forgive you, Linda. You've shattered everything. This isn't just a mistake. This was a choice you made, over and over again. Her face crumpled, the tears flowing freely now. She collapsed to her knees, reaching out for me one last time. Please, don't leave me like this. I was wrong. I swear, I'll change. We can fix this together. I shook my head, stepping back further, and I felt a strange sense of relief as I did. I can't fix this. Not with you. Not after what you've done. She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she couldn't understand why I couldn't just move past it. But I knew there was no going back. I stood at the edge of the living room, my body tense, barely able to contain the overwhelming mix of anger and heartbreak. Linda, still in tears, was sitting on the couch, looking like she didn't know what was coming, still holding on to the hope that I might somehow forgive her. I don't want to hear any more excuses, Linda, I said, my voice cold and steady. I've heard enough. I've listened to your lies, your justifications, but I can't keep pretending like this didn't happen. I won't. She looked up, her eyes filled with confusion and desperation. What are you saying? Please, I love you. I swear it was a mistake. You know I didn't mean for it to go this far. We can fix this? I shook my head, cutting her off. No, we can't. There's nothing to fix. You've been lying to me for months, hiding behind my trust while sleeping with my brother. How could you do this to me? I gave you everything, and you threw it all away. Linda stood up now, her hands trembling, voice breaking. Please, I know I hurt you, but we can work through this. I'll do anything. Just don't send me away like this. The sight of her pleading, knowing what she'd done, was suffocating. You've done enough, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. You've done more than enough, Linda. She stepped closer to me, reaching out, her eyes filled with panic. I'm begging you. Please, don't end it like this. I swear, I was confused. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. We can fix it. Just don't kick me out. I stood my ground, my voice unyielding. I don't care about your mistakes anymore. You've had more than enough chances, and you wasted every single one of them. I took a deep breath, pushing down the hurt that was threatening to break through. I want you to pack your things. Now, and get out of my house. Her face paled as the weight of my words hit her. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand, silencing her. I don't want to hear any more apologies or excuses, Linda. Just pack your things and leave. I can't look at you anymore. She stepped back, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger now. You're really doing this? After everything we've been through, you're just going to throw me out? Yes, I said, my voice unwavering. You don't get to decide what happens next. You lost that right when you betrayed me. So, get out of my house. I don't want you here anymore. Linda stood frozen for a moment, tears still streaming down her face, her shoulders shaking with sobs. But she didn't move. I could see the struggle in her, trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Please, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered, her voice full of anguish. I shook my head, turning away, unable to look at her any longer. I know, Linda, you didn't mean to hurt me. But you did. And now it's over. I walked toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest, the finality of the situation sinking in. I didn't look back. I couldn't. After a few moments of silence, I heard her footsteps, slow and hesitant, as she began to gather her things. But the truth was, nothing could fix this. There was no going back from what she had done. And as she packed, all I could think about was how much I wished I could erase this pain from my chest. But it was done. She was leaving. And so was everything we had built together. I dialed Alex's number, my hands shaking with rage, the phone feeling like a foreign object in my grip. It only rang once before he picked up. Hello? His voice was casual, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. Alex, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though the fury was bubbling beneath the surface. There was a long pause on the other end, then he sighed. Look, man, I don't know what's going on, but I cut him off, my words sharp. Cut the crap, Alex. I know everything. I know about you and Linda. There was a moment of silence before he spoke again, this time his voice defensive. Okay, I screwed up, but it was a mistake, all right? It didn't mean anything. She came to me when she was drunk and, don't you dare try to downplay it, I snapped, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly how much she meant to me, and you went there anyway. Alex let out an exaggerated sigh. Look, man, I'm sorry, all right? But maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me. My blood turned to ice at his words. My breath hitched in my chest as anger flooded every inch of my body. I didn't know what I had expected from him, but it sure as hell wasn't that. Excuse me? I growled, my voice low and dangerous. You heard me, Alex shot back, his tone now defiant. If you were actually there for her, maybe she wouldn't have turned to me. She was looking for someone who actually paid attention to her needs. That was it. That was the breaking point. Every ounce of restraint I had been holding onto snapped in half like a twig under pressure. You think you can just talk to me like that? After everything you've done? I shouted, my pulse pounding in my ears. Calm down, Alex said, but I could hear the unease in his voice now. Look, man, I didn't want this to happen. I didn't care about his excuses anymore. I slammed the phone down onto the dashboard and got out of my car, adrenaline surging through me. I couldn't stay calm anymore. I had to see him. I had to confront him. I was done with the words. I needed to make him understand how much he had ruined. The moment I walked into the house, I felt the tension in the air. My parents were already sitting at the kitchen table, and Alex was standing by the window, nervously shifting his weight from foot to foot. The second I entered, Alex's eyes locked onto mine, his face a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. But he said nothing, letting my parents take the lead. My mother's voice was the first to cut through the silence, soft yet stern. We need to talk about this, son. Alex has explained everything, and we understand it was a mistake. Stop, I interrupted, my voice louder than I intended. You don't get to make excuses for him. Alex immediately shot me a look, but I couldn't care less. My eyes were on my mother, who had that familiar disappointed look on her face. You can't honestly believe that, can you? That this was just a mistake? My mother's face softened, but there was no understanding in her eyes. We all make mistakes, son. Alex is sorry. It was a moment of weakness. He's your brother. We're family, and family sticks together. I felt the anger bubbling up in my chest. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the weight of their blind loyalty to Alex suffocating. Family? I repeated, my voice shaking with fury. What does family even mean to you? Because it's sure as hell not loyalty or respect. It's about coddling the golden child while throwing me under the bus. My father, who had been silently observing until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. You're overreacting. Alex is sorry. He made a mistake, and you need to forgive him. It's not easy, but that's what family does. We forgive. Forgive? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. You want me to forgive him for sleeping with my fiancée? For betraying me in the worst way possible? And you're telling me I'm overreacting? Alex stepped forward, trying to calm the situation, but his words only made everything worse. I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake, okay? Linda came to me for comfort. No, I spat, cutting him off. You knew exactly what you were doing. You didn't comfort her, Alex. You took advantage of her. You took everything from me. And now you stand here, trying to pretend it was all some innocent mistake? Alex's expression faltered, and for a moment, I saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. But then he quickly masked it with a defensive posture. I don't need this from you. I never wanted to hurt you. You're making this all so much worse. You're making it impossible to fix anything. I stepped forward, my fists clenched at my sides. You're right about one thing, Alex. Nothing can fix this. You're not my brother anymore. As far as I'm concerned, you died the second you touched her. My mother gasped, her face going pale, but I couldn't stop now. You've always been the favorite, haven't you? Always the one they coddled. Always the one they defended. Even when you screwed up. Well, not anymore. I'm done with all of you. I turned to face my parents. You've always picked him over me, haven't you? You've always favored Alex, treated him like he could do no wrong. And now, when he does the worst thing possible, you're still standing by him. My father's face reddened, and I saw his jaw tighten. That's enough. Don't you dare talk to your mother like that. No, you listen to me. I fired back, stepping closer. You've never had my back, not once. You've always stood by Alex, no matter what. And now you're telling me that family comes first? That he comes first? I looked at my mother, shaking my head in disbelief. You want me to forgive him? You want me to just move on like it was no big deal? Well, I can't do that. And I won't. I looked back at Alex, my voice dripping with disgust. You've always wanted me to fail, haven't you? You've always wanted to be the one who was better. You wanted her, and now you've got her. And I hope you're happy with the mess you've created. Alex, I said, my voice icy and steady, you are no longer my brother. You might share the same blood as me, but you're dead to me. You can't be serious, Alex said, taking a step forward. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was a mistake. I scoffed, cutting him off. A mistake? This wasn't a mistake, Alex. This was a choice. A choice you made over and over again. You knew exactly what you were doing. He opened his mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. I turned to my parents, who had been silent up until now, both of them looking at me with disappointment, their faces lined with judgment. You can have him, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. You can have the son you've always wanted, the perfect one. Because I'm done. I'm done being the second choice, done being the one who was always pushed aside. You don't have me anymore. My mother's face fell, and she started to speak, but I held up my hand to stop her. Just don't try to make this about me. You've always put Alex first, even when I needed you, even when I was hurting. You never once stood up for me when he took everything from me. So don't stand there and act like you care now. My father finally spoke, his voice cold. You're overreacting. This is family. Alex made a mistake, but we don't just throw him away because of one bad decision. I let out a bitter laugh, the pain flooding my chest. Family? Is that what this is? A family that rewards betrayal and punishes honesty? I shook my head. No, I'm done. You can keep pretending that this is all okay, but I'm not playing along anymore. As for you, Mom, you're dead to me, and you, Father, screw you and hope you physically die soon, 'cause to me you are already dead. The room fell silent. I could see the shock in their eyes, but there was no going back. The words were out, and they had shattered everything between us. Without waiting for another word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. As I stepped into the cool night air, the weight lifted off my shoulders, leaving me with a strange sense of peace, even though my heart was still broken. I had finally done what I should have done a long time ago. Let them all go. When I eventually got home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages. Linda begged for another chance. Alex alternated between apologizing and accusing me, and most of the messages were from my parents, demanding that I grow up and make amends. I ignored them all, barely eating or sleeping. I called out of work, using up all my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone or explain what had happened. I just sat in my apartment, replaying every detail of my relationship with Linda and every interaction with Alex, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. 3 months had passed since I walked away from everything. The lies, the betrayal, the pain. I had started over, found a new apartment, and thrown myself into therapy, trying to untangle the mess they had created in my life. Yet, no matter how far I ran, they kept finding ways to invade my space, my peace, my sanity. It was a Thursday afternoon when I first saw my mother standing by my car in the parking lot. She was crying, her face twisted with desperation as she clutched her purse like it might hold the answers to everything. I tried to avoid her, but there was no escaping. Please, she sobbed as I walked toward my car. You have to understand. You're tearing the family apart. You're breaking your father's heart. He can't take this much longer. We can't take it, son. I paused, breathless, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Mom, I'm not the one who destroyed this family. I didn't ask Alex to sleep with my fiancée, and I didn't ask you to support him while he did it. My voice cracked, but I couldn't let her see my vulnerability. Not anymore. That's not how it happened, and you know it. Her voice was pleading now, her eyes filled with tears. You can't just throw everything away because of one mistake. Alex is your brother. We're your family. Don't you want things to go back to normal? I shook my head, the weight of her words like a slap to the face. No, Mom. It's not one mistake. It's a pattern. And I'm done being the backup, done being the one who gets pushed aside. I've tried. Okay? I've tried to be part of this family. But every time I stand up for myself, I'm told I'm wrong. So no, I'm not going to forgive Alex. And I'm not coming back. She crumpled, sinking down on the curb as if the weight of it all had crushed her. You're hurting us? Please, please think about this. I stood there for a long moment, watching her sob on the ground, feeling the anger and sorrow swirling inside me. But I didn't go to her. I couldn't. You don't get to make me feel guilty for this anymore, I said, my voice firm. I need to move on, and if that means cutting ties, then that's what I'll do. I didn't wait for another word from her. I climbed into my car, slamming the door behind me. I had barely started the engine when my phone rang. My father. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach, but I answered anyway. Man up. Man up, he barked before I could even say hello. You're acting like a child. This nonsense about family? You've got to forgive him. Forgive Alex. You've been through worse, and you let this tear you apart? You're making a mistake, son. You're throwing away everything we've built. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Everything you've built, you mean? Not me. Not the son you always put second to Alex. I'm not doing this anymore. Then you've chosen this path, he said, his voice cold. And I hope you're ready to live with the consequences. I hung up on him before he could say more. The air inside the car was thick, and I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing in on me. But I couldn't go back. Not after everything. Later that week, I went into work. The last thing I needed was for my past to follow me there, but sure enough, I found a message on my desk. A voicemail from a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, it's Barbara. Listen, I know things are rough right now, but family's important, you know? I really think you should reconsider your decision. I've been talking to your mom, and I can see how hurt she is. Maybe it's time to forgive Alex and move on. He made a mistake, and you guys can fix this, right? Family is everything. Don't throw that away. I stared at the phone for a long moment, feeling the weight of the words press down on me. These people, they just didn't get it. I called her back, my voice sharp. Barbara, I don't need you to tell me what's best for me. You weren't there. You didn't see what happened. Alex isn't the victim here, and neither am I. I'm done being guilt-tripped into forgiving people who've repeatedly hurt me. There was a long silence before she sighed, defeated. I get it. I just thought, well, maybe you'd want things to be the way they used to be. No, I said firmly. I don't. And I won't. I have to do what's best for me. And right now, that means leaving all of this behind. I hung up and set my phone down on the desk. It wasn't easy, but I knew that peace was something I had to fight for, even if it meant cutting off everyone who didn't respect my boundaries, even if it meant being alone for a while. Yesterday, I received a message from Linda. She's keeping the baby and plans to co-parent with Alex. My parents are overjoyed about becoming grandparents, completely forgetting the harsh things they said about Linda when she was with me. Her message was full of apologies and explanations, claiming that she and Alex found true love through this mess. She even had the audacity to suggest that we could all eventually become friends, for the sake of the child. I'm at my breaking point. Part of me wants to sever all ties and start over somewhere else. Maybe move to another state, change my identity, and create a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so angry that I want to stay and fight to show them just how twisted the situation really is. I don't know what to do anymore. This betrayal has impacted every aspect of my life. I can't bear to be alone with my thoughts, and I haven't even considered dating again. The idea of trusting someone like that scares me. I've also lost friends over this. Those who think I should take the high road and reunite with my family, as if I'm the one in the wrong for refusing to play happy families with the people who've hurt me the most. The thought of Linda and Alex raising a child together, a child who should have been mine, is like a constant stab in my heart. I know that, logically, the baby is innocent. It's not the child's fault that its parents are liars and cheaters, but I can't bring myself to feel good about its existence. And now, my parents are starting to talk about how I should be involved in the child's life and how I'll become an uncle. The idea of looking at that child fills me with physical disgust. How can I view this youngster without seeing the embodiment of my brother's betrayal? Am I wrong for wanting to sever ties with my family over this? I've been moving forward in small but significant ways. I've consulted with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against my family, and it's currently in progress. I've decided not to have any contact with the baby, though it's not the child's fault. I know I can't involve myself without losing my sanity. As for work, HR has been incredibly supportive, offering security at the front desk and even the option to work from home more often, which I'm grateful for. I've thought about relocating to another city, and a transfer could be possible, but I'm still weighing the pros and cons regarding the paternity of Linda's child. She's admitted to the affair, and the timeline matches, so I have no reason to doubt that the child is Alex's. Even if it were mine, though, I don't think I could ever look at that child without being reminded of this betrayal. As for Linda's family, they were just as shocked and appalled as anyone could imagine. They've cut off communication with her and reached out to offer their support, which, while small, is something I'm grateful for. As for my own future, especially regarding children, this whole experience has made me question whether I even want to have a family. But for now, I'm taking things one step at a time, processing everything before making any major decisions. A few weeks have passed, and I was working on obtaining the restraining order, which turned into a huge ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and we had a hearing scheduled. I thought it would be straightforward, given the evidence and ongoing harassment, but I was wrong. My parents showed up with their own lawyer, some high-priced guy in an expensive suit, probably charging more per hour than I make in a week. The courthouse was cold, sterile, and indifferent to the emotional weight of the proceedings. I could feel the tension in my chest as we sat there, listening to my parents' lawyer attempt to twist the narrative. They were portraying me as some vengeful, irrational person, someone who couldn't handle a small mistake. I was the one tearing the family apart, they said, and they were just trying to keep things together. It was absurd. The lawyer was smooth, too polished in his delivery. His words slid through the air like knives, but I wasn't about to let him get away with it. Every time he spoke, I felt a fresh wave of disgust for the way they were manipulating the situation, as if Alex hadn't willingly and consciously destroyed everything I had. When it was my turn, my lawyer presented the evidence. The emails, the texts, the constant harassment. I'd gathered everything. My case was solid, and I wasn't backing down. The judge listened, expressionless but attentive, nodding as we laid it all out. The moments my parents spent denying everything, claiming it was a mistake, seemed pathetic next to the overwhelming facts we presented. And yet, as the judge made her decision, it didn't feel like a victory. Not with my mother sobbing uncontrollably in the corner, clutching her hands to her chest as if her entire world had come crashing down. And my father. His face was red, his jaw tight, barely holding it together. The disappointment in his eyes was palpable, like I was the one who had betrayed everything we'd built as a family. The judge finally spoke, her voice clear and firm. I'm issuing a restraining order against Alexander and the petitioners, Mr. and Mrs. McKinley. Your behavior, particularly the continued harassment, is unacceptable. This order is effective immediately. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. It was over, or at least the legal battle was. As we walked out of the courtroom, I could feel their eyes on me. Alex stood there, leaning against the pillar, his eyes full of anger and something I couldn't quite place. It was as though he was silently willing me to step forward, to engage with him, to let go of this grudge. But I knew better. I wasn't going to let him guilt me into anything. We were almost to the exit when Alex moved toward me, his eyes narrowed, fists clenched. His jaw was tight as he spoke, low and dangerous. This isn't over. You'll regret doing this. I could see the smirk on his face, like he was trying to intimidate me. It didn't work. My heart was beating faster now, but not out of fear. It was the familiar rush of rage, the burn of injustice. Before I could respond, my lawyer stepped in, his posture calm but unwavering. He placed himself squarely between us, blocking Alex's path with his presence alone. That's enough, Alex, my lawyer said, his voice cold. Remember the restraining order. You're not allowed to be within 100 feet of him. Any further contact will result in legal consequences. Alex's gaze snapped to my lawyer, and for a moment, I thought he might say something, anything. But instead, he clenched his fists tighter, his nostrils flaring as he took a step back. Fine, Alex spat, his voice full of venom. But don't think this is over. Not by a long shot. Alex scoffed, dismissing the restraining order with a sneer. He claimed it wasn't over, that I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. I'd be lying if I said his words didn't get under my skin, but But at least for now, I had some legal protection. I didn't have to constantly look over my shoulder anymore, not knowing when he or my parents would show up again to disrupt my life. But things weren't settling down. In fact, the chaos only seemed to grow. Remember when I mentioned how my family had been showing up at my workplace? Well, last week, that situation reached a boiling point. I was sitting in a crucial meeting with a customer when my assistant came in, looking visibly uncomfortable. She whispered, your mom is in the lobby. She's causing a scene. I immediately excused myself, my stomach sinking. The last thing I needed was another confrontation with my mother, especially not at work. I rushed downstairs, and when I walked into the lobby, I couldn't believe what I saw. My mother was surrounded by a small crowd of my coworkers, all looking uneasy. She was holding a photo album, flipping through baby pictures of Alex and me, and telling anyone who would listen about how close her boys used to be. She was in the middle of a story about how Alex and I used to bathe together as toddlers when her eyes locked on me. Her face lit up, and she made a beeline for me. "Oh, sweetheart, I've been looking for you. You know, we're planning a baby shower for Alex and Linda, and—" I cut her off before she could go any further. "I don't want to hear it," I said, my voice sharp. "I need you to leave, now. You're trespassing, and if you don't go, I'll call the police." Her face froze, a look of pure shock and disbelief taking over. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to frustration, but I wasn't backing down. "Not this time. I don't understand why you're being like this," she protested, her voice rising slightly. "I'm just trying to make things right." "I don't care," I said firmly, cutting her off. "You need to leave. Now." Before she could say anything else, security stepped in. I turned away, not wanting to deal with her further, and let them escort her out of the building. It was over. She had crossed the line, and I wasn't going to tolerate it anymore. The rest of the afternoon was spent doing damage control. I had to apologize to my employer and try to smooth things over with my colleagues, who had all been put in an uncomfortable position. Thankfully, most of them understood and assured me they weren't bothered, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth. The last thing I wanted was for my personal life to spill over into my professional life like that. Most of them understood, but I could tell some were questioning what kind of drama I was bringing into the office. Last Saturday, I was at the gym, trying to work off some of the frustration that had been building up. I focused on the punching bag, my hands moving with practiced rhythm, each hit a way to let go of the anger and pain I'd been carrying for weeks. The sound of the bag thumping under my fists was oddly soothing, but it didn't drown out the voice I heard behind me. "Nice to see you still working out, man," Alex said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I turned around, and there he was, Alex, standing there with that smirk on his face, like he hadn't just broken the restraining order I had against him. It took me a second to process, but then the anger hit me like a wave. I felt my blood boil. He was out here, in public, trying to provoke me. "Get lost, Alex," I snapped, trying to keep my cool. "You're not welcome here." He laughed loudly, attracting attention from people around us. "Oh, come on. Don't be like that," he said, taking a few steps closer, clearly enjoying the tension he was creating. "You've got this whole restraining order thing, but I bet you haven't told everyone that I am still banging Linda?" That was the breaking point. I couldn't take his smug attitude anymore. "You need to leave. Now," I said, my voice low but firm. Alex just grinned wider. "What are you going to do about it? Call the cops? What are they going to believe, your word or mine?" Before I could stop myself, I swung at him. My fist landed square on his jaw with a satisfying crack, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe that would be the end of it. But Alex wasn't the type to back down. He stumbled back a step, then lunged at me, grabbing my shirt and pulling me toward him. We both hit the floor with a thud, the gym's rubber mats doing little to cushion the impact. We were on top of each other, trading punches like we were kids again, fists flying without thinking. The pain in my knuckles barely registered as I landed a solid hit to his stomach. Alex retaliated, his fist connecting with the side of my face, making my vision blur for a second. "You're dead to me, Alex," I yelled, shoving him off me as best I could, but he was relentless, coming at me again, his hands tangled in my shirt. "You're nothing but a backstabbing piece of—" "Shut up," he roared, landing another punch, this one catching me in the cheek. That one stung a bit. We were so caught up in the chaos that we didn't notice the gym staff rushing over until they were pulling us apart. One of the trainers grabbed Alex, while another held me back, keeping us separated as we both panted heavily, blood trickling from Alex's nose and my own face beginning to swell. The pain was sharp, but the anger was sharper. I couldn't believe this was happening, in front of everyone, over something so petty as his need to be right. That's enough. The gym manager shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. If you two don't calm down, I'll call the cops right now. I don't care about your personal issues. You'll both be banned from here. Alex glared at me, his eyes filled with fury, but he seemed to realize the situation was spiraling. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand, then shot me one last look before storming off toward the door. I stayed where I was, trying to steady my breath, my heart still pounding in my chest. The gym manager looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and irritation. You need to get out of here, he said, his tone no nonsense. I nodded, still reeling from what had just happened. I'm leaving, I muttered, grabbing my things and heading for the door, trying to shake off the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. As I walked out, I could hear the whispers and murmurs from the people who had witnessed the scene. I didn't care. Nothing mattered except getting out of that gym and away from Alex. But even as I made my way to the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. On my drive home, still trying to shake off the rush of adrenaline, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but in that moment, I didn't think twice and picked up. How could you? Linda's voice screamed through the receiver, full of fury. You broke his nose. Alex might need surgery. The absurdity of her words made me laugh, a bitter, hollow laugh. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Did I hurt your precious little boyfriend? The one you were sleeping with behind my back for months? My bad. Linda fell silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, it was almost a whisper, a tremor in her voice. This isn't about that. You don't get it. Alex is hurt, and the baby can feel what I'm feeling. You're being so selfish. I felt my anger spike again, and I couldn't hold it in. Selfish? Are you really going to sit there and lecture me about selfishness, Linda? After everything you did to me? You've got some nerve. She started sobbing, her voice cracking as she tried to guilt-trip me. I'm just so anxious. This is stressful, and you've made everything worse. Please, you have to understand. This isn't just about us. It's about the baby. I felt my jaw tighten. No, you don't get to make this about the baby. This is about your betrayal. You made it about that. I didn't wait for her to say anything more. I ended the call and blocked her number. I wasn't going to listen to her nonsense anymore. I had done enough. I had nothing left to say to her, or to Alex for that matter. The fallout from that fight, however, didn't end there. Word spread fast through our social circle, and within hours, my phone was blowing up with messages. Some people reached out to offer support, telling me they understood why I did what I did. But there were others, far too many others, who criticized me, calling me a coward for what they called assaulting my poor, defenseless brother. One message that stood out came from an old friend who used to be close with both Alex and me. You've really lost it, huh? Was it worth it? I get that you're hurt, but beating up Alex like that? That's messed up. Another message came in from someone I barely knew, but they still felt the need to weigh in. What's wrong with you? How could you do that to your own brother? Are you really that angry over a stupid mistake? You're ruining everything. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling again. How could they side with Alex after everything? How could they still blame me for standing up for myself, for refusing to let him walk all over me? But there were also the supportive messages. Some people knew the truth, and they were on my side. A message from one of my closest friends read, I get it, man. What he did was beyond messed up. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. You're better off without both of them. Still, the guilt, the anger, it lingered. It didn't matter how many people supported me. The betrayal still stung, and Alex's face, bloodied from our fight, kept replaying in my mind. Linda's parents reached out to me again, offering their support and expressing their displeasure with their daughter. It's a small comfort, but at this point, I'll take whatever I can get. The restraining order doesn't seem to be enough anymore. Alex has shown that he's willing to break it, and I'm increasingly worried about what he'll do next. The legal fallout has been a nightmare. The day after the gym incident, my lawyer called me with bad news. Alex had filed assault charges against me. I couldn't believe it. I tried to explain everything to my lawyer, telling him how Alex had violated the restraining order and provoked me, but all I heard was a frustrated groan on the other end of the line. Look, my lawyer said, clearly trying to manage expectations, I get it. You were defending yourself, but the fact remains, you threw the first punch, and that complicates things. This is going to be a tough battle. I could hear the stress in his voice. He paused, clearly thinking through the strategy. We're filing charges against Alex for breaking the restraining order, which could help our case. But honestly, nothing is certain at this point. I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache creeping in. So, what do I do now? You'll need to give statements to the police, and they'll probably want to see your injuries. We'll get through this, but it's going to be humiliating. Defending yourself against your own brother. It's just a mess. Yeah, I muttered, staring at the floor. I know. The worst part was giving those statements to the police. Having to explain how my own brother had pushed me to the point of violence. It felt like a punch in the gut every time I had to relive it. The police were understanding but also clinical, taking down every detail as I showed them my injuries, including the swelling on my face from the fight. It made me feel like I was the one on trial. To top it all off, I got a call from the gym. They informed me that both Alex and I had been banned for life. Apparently, the fight had been too public and too violent. I couldn't blame them, but it still stung. The gym had been one of the few places where I could actually work out my frustrations in a healthy way, and now that was gone too. I'm sorry, but after the incident, we have no choice but to ban both of you, the gym manager said over the phone. It's against our policy to allow that kind of behavior here. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. I understand, I said, even though I didn't. It's just disappointing. I needed that place. Yeah, we get it. But rules are rules, and we can't have fights like that happening in the gym. I hung up, frustrated, knowing that now even the small outlets I had left were slipping away. My cousin Brenda, who I've always been close to, called me recently. The phone call from Brenda came late one evening, and her voice was filled with a mixture of concern and frustration. Hey, how's it going? She asked softly, as if checking in. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Same old, trying to keep my head above water. What's up? Well, I need to talk to you about something, she said, pausing for a moment before continuing. It's about the family. My stomach tightened. What now? More drama? Yeah, you could say that, Brenda said with a heavy sigh. I've been getting a lot of pressure from everyone, especially Mom and Dad, to turn on you, but I'm standing my ground. I just wanted you to know that. I felt a sense of relief hearing that. Thanks, Brenda. It means a lot to me. But that's not all, she continued. They've been spreading some pretty messed up rumors about you. I could feel my blood start to boil. What kind of rumors? They're telling people you're having a mental breakdown, Brenda said, her voice growing more serious. That you're jealous of Alex and Linda's relationship, that you can't accept it, and that you're just bitter. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head even though I knew she couldn't see me. Unbelievable. They're really going that far? After everything they've done to me, they have the nerve to say that? Yeah, and the worst part is, she went on, most of the family is skeptical, but a few of them actually believe them. It's like they don't even care about the truth, just the story that fits their narrative. I clenched my jaw, trying to suppress my anger. I don't even know what to say. It's exhausting, Brenda. I'm just trying to heal and move on, but they won't let me. They've already ruined everything, and now they're making it worse by spreading lies. I know, Brenda said sympathetically, but I've got your back. I'm not letting them paint you like that, and I'll keep fighting to make sure people know the truth. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my chest. I don't know what I'd do without you. Thanks for standing by me. Really? Brenda's voice softened. You don't have to thank me. You're family. I won't let them get away with this. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us trying to process the weight of the situation. Finally, I broke the silence. It's just frustrating, you know? All I want is peace, but they keep dragging me back into this chaos. I can't even go a day without hearing about them. I know, Brenda said, but just remember, not everyone is buying into their lies. There are people who see through it, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Yeah, I replied, feeling a little more hopeful. Thanks. I'll try to keep that in mind. Before hanging up, Brenda said, take care of yourself, okay? And if you need anything, you know where to find me. I will. I'm lucky to have you in my corner, Brenda. Same here. Talk soon. After we hung up, I sat there for a while, trying to digest everything she had said. It hurt to know that my own parents were willing to go so far to tarnish my reputation, but I also felt a sense of relief knowing that at least someone in the family had my back. Things at work haven't been any better. After the incident with my mother in the lobby and the argument with Alex, which went viral on social media, I can't tell my coworkers are uneasy around me. It was a quiet afternoon when my manager called me into his office. The door clicked shut behind me as I sat down, expecting a routine check-in, but I could tell by the way he was fidgeting with a pen that this was different. Hey, Marvin, he started, leaning back in his chair. I just want you to know, we really value you here. You've been an excellent employee, and I understand you're going through a lot right now. We all see it. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. I appreciate that, thank you. He sighed, clearly trying to choose his words carefully. Given the circumstances, everything that's been going on, I've been thinking it might be best if you took some time off. A personal sabbatical, paid of course, until things settled down. My heart sank. I could already feel the weight of his words pressing down on me. The last thing I wanted was time away from work. I don't know. I began, hesitating. I really don't think. I know it's not easy, but I believe it might be the best for you right now, he interrupted gently. You've been under a lot of stress, and honestly, you don't seem like you're at your best lately. I clenched my fists, fighting the frustration bubbling up inside me. This was not the time. I'm fine, I said through gritted teeth. I don't need a break. I need to keep working. He gave me a sympathetic look. I get that, Marvin, but sometimes, a little time off is what helps. We'll give you the space you need to focus on yourself and your personal life. When you're ready, we'll be here. I sighed, knowing there was no use arguing. This wasn't something I could change. Fine, I said, forcing myself to sound calm. I understand. Thank you for being understanding. He smiled slightly, as if relieved. Of course. Take care of yourself. We'll sort out the details later. As I stood to leave, I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. I wasn't ready for a sabbatical, but there was nothing I could do. I was out of control, and the fact that it was happening in front of my boss made it all the worse. I grabbed my things from my desk, mentally checking off what I needed to do. As I walked toward the door, I heard two coworkers talking just outside my office. One of them chuckled. Did you hear? Alex got Marvin's fiancée pregnant. How messed up is that? I froze, the blood draining from my face. My first instinct was to turn around and confront them, but instead, I grabbed the doorknob with more force than necessary and slammed the door behind me. The loud sound echoed down the hallway, and I could feel the startled gazes of my coworkers on me as I walked away. I didn't stop to apologize or explain. I just kept walking, taking a small amount of satisfaction in their wide-eyed, silent shock. The office felt even colder now, but in that moment, the satisfaction of startling them gave me a sense of control, something I hadn't felt in days. It had been a long, exhausting day. The weight of everything, work, the legal mess, the family pressure, had me feeling suffocated. So I found myself doing what I've started doing more and more lately, driving aimlessly. The hum of the engine and the steady motion were the only things that seemed to ground me. The night air was cool through the open window, but I didn't care. I was numb. I didn't know where I was going, but I ended up parked outside the old apartment, the one I used to share with Linda, the place I thought was a home, until everything came crashing down. The silence of the night pressed in, and I couldn't help but stare at the building, wondering how I ended up here. How did everything fall apart so quickly? That's when my phone buzzed. A notification from social media. I didn't check it often, but something made me open the message. It was from Maria, Linda's younger sister. Hey, I don't know if you're still checking this, but I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about everything. I can't believe what Linda and Alex did to you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I stared at the message for a moment, unsure how to respond. Was this a trap? Did she just want to cause more drama? Or was she genuinely reaching out? I hadn't heard from Maria in months, not since she had distanced herself from Linda after things had gotten bad between us. But I couldn't deny that the idea of hearing a familiar voice, someone who hadn't been tainted by the mess, was appealing. I wrote back, "Why are you contacting me now? After everything?" The response came almost immediately. "I know this is weird, and I understand if you don't want to talk to me, but I had to say something. I'm disgusted by Linda's actions. She's been telling everyone how much she's suffering from the breakup, how Alex is her true love, and it's all just lies. I don't want to see you suffer alone. I just want you to know that not everyone in the family is like that." I felt a surge of something, a strange mix of gratitude and anger. I didn't know what to think. Could I trust her? Was she truly on my side? I typed out a response, but I hesitated before sending it. I responded, "How do I know you're not just trying to get in my head, like they all are? You're telling me all this, but what's your angle? Why reach out now?" There was a longer pause before she replied, and when she did, the tone was more earnest. "I get it. You've been hurt, and I don't blame you for not trusting me. I don't expect you to forgive me or even talk to me right now, but I want you to know that I'm not trying to mess with you. I'm not close with Linda anymore. I've seen what she's doing with Alex, and it makes me sick. They moved in together, and she's playing the victim card to everyone who will listen. It's like they think they're untouchable. I can't stand it, but I want you to have the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear." I wrote back, I don't even know what to say." She responded, "I know. I don't expect you to respond right away. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I don't agree with what they did. I'm sorry, Marvin. I sat there for a moment, rereading her messages, feeling the anger bubbling up in me once more. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. It was all coming back. And yet, there was something comforting about having someone on my side, even if it was just for a moment. Thanks, Maria. I appreciate you telling me the truth. I don't know where this goes, but at least you're not lying to me like they are. She responded, I won't. I promise. I sat back in my car, staring at the phone screen, trying to process what had just happened. Maria's words gave me a strange sense of clarity, but it didn't take away the sick feeling in my stomach. Linda was living in this fantasy, and Alex was right there with her, playing the part of the soulmates everyone around them was too blind to see through. I let out a deep breath and started the car again, the familiar sound of the engine filling the silence. It didn't fix anything. It didn't take away the pain, but it was something, someone, who had stepped into the mess, offering a sliver of truth. And for now, that was enough. I pulled out of the parking lot and drove away, my mind racing, but at least, for once, I didn't feel completely alone. It didn't take long for the drama to spill over onto social media. Someone, likely one of Alex's friends, posted a detailed account of our confrontation at the gym on a local Facebook page. They didn't directly name us, but they described the scene with enough specifics, like the blood, the way Alex had been bleeding, and the altercation in front of everyone, that anyone who knew us would immediately recognize the situation. The post itself was a mix of sarcasm and judgment, clearly aimed at stirring up drama. Of course, the comments section blew up almost instantly, with people weighing in from all sides. Some defended me, arguing that Alex had pushed me too far, that he'd been asking for it. He had it coming, one comment said. Others, however, turned against me completely, claiming that I was unhinged, that I was the real problem, and that I needed professional help. One comment even suggested that I should be locked up for assaulting my brother. The negative comments stung. They were harsh, cruel even, and they painted me as some kind of monster. I knew I shouldn't let it bother me, but the more I read, the harder it became to tune out. What started as a few messages snowballed into an avalanche of judgment. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly resurfaced in my notifications. Some were offering helpful advice, while others just wanted to gossip, digging for more details about the fight, about my personal life. Anything they could get their hands on to fuel their own curiosity or make them feel better about their own lives. I couldn't escape it. One night, after I had a few too many drinks to numb the frustration, I made the mistake of scrolling through the post again. The comments were even worse this time. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as I read each cruel remark, each opinion about my life that no one had any business having. My heart pounded in my ears, and before I knew it, I threw my phone across the room in a fit of anger. It slammed against the wall, the screen cracking on impact. I sat there, staring at the shattered phone, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. This was my life now. It was a mess, and everyone had an opinion about it, whether they knew the whole story or not. The shame, the frustration, the anger. It was all too much. The next day, I deactivated most of my social media profiles. I couldn't handle the constant notifications, the constant reminders that people were watching, judging, and commenting on my every move. The barrage of messages from people I didn't even recognize, asking invasive questions about things I didn't want to discuss, made me feel like I was drowning. It was easier to just shut it all down and retreat from the noise. But the damage was done. I had thrown my phone in anger, and now I was retreating into silence. The world felt like it was collapsing around me, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. I've come to realize that staying in this city is no longer an option. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the constant reminders of what Linda and Alex have done, has become too much to bear. Every corner of this place feels tainted with memories and the thought of running into one of them. Whether it's Linda, Alex, or even my parents, feels suffocating. The pressure to be constantly on edge, to brace for another confrontation, is exhausting. I've started looking into internal transfers within the company, and there's one opportunity that stands out, a promising position in the Seattle office. At first, I hesitated. I've never been a fan of the rain, and the thought of moving to a place so different from everything I know felt daunting. But the more I think about it, the more appealing the idea becomes. I'm at a point where I'd take a fresh start anywhere, even if that meant moving to the moon, as far away from this mess as possible. The prospect of leaving behind the people who have made my life hell, of finding a place where no one knows my past or the pain I've been through, feels like the only way forward. I haven't made a final decision yet, but the more I dwell on it, the more certain I feel about it. A new city, a new apartment, a life with no reminders of the past, where I can just breathe without the constant weight of judgment and regret. The thought of being free from the shadow of my brother and my ex-fiancée, of starting fresh and rebuilding my life on my own terms, is incredibly tempting. As for my parents, they've been eerily silent since the restraining order was issued. It's almost like they're in hiding, biding their time, trying to figure out their next move. I know them well enough to know that they won't stay quiet forever. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to come up with some new way to worm their way back into my life, to manipulate me into forgiving them and accepting their version of events. But right now, I'm enjoying the silence. It's the first real peace I've had in a long time. Meanwhile, Linda's been broadcasting every detail of her pregnancy to the world. Maria tells me she's been posting ultrasound photos, belly shots, and messages about how blessed she and Alex are. She writes about how excited they are to start their family, as if nothing has ever happened, as if they haven't completely destroyed everything in their wake. Each new post feels like a fresh wound, a reminder of the life I thought I had, the future I thought I was building, now lost to betrayal. The worst part is that, despite everything, part of me still feels the pain. I try not to look at their updates, but I can't help myself sometimes. I tell myself I'm over it, that I'm healing, but with each ultrasound photo, each joyous announcement, I feel like the rug is being pulled out from under me all over again. It's like every new post reopens a scar, just when I thought I was starting to heal. The past few days have been a blur. So much has happened, and I'm still trying to make sense of it all. But the biggest decision I've made in recent days is that I'm relocating. I took the leap and accepted the transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't easy. It feels like a huge risk, but I know deep down it's what I need. A fresh start, a new life away from everything that's happened here. The decision didn't come lightly, especially after a particularly tough day last week. I had just come back from another frustrating meeting with my lawyer regarding Alex's assault allegations. The case feels like it's dragging on forever, and I can't help but feel overwhelmed. It's like everything is piling up. I was walking back to my apartment, mind racing, when I found it, an envelope in my mailbox. At first, I almost tossed it out, but something made me pause. I flipped it over and saw the handwriting on the front, Linda's. I froze for a moment, unsure if I should even open it. My first instinct was to shred it, to move on and forget about her. But my curiosity got the better of me. I tore open the envelope and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Inside was an ultrasound image and a handwritten letter. The letter read, "I know things have been tough between us, but I wanted to share some good news. Alex and I are expecting a baby, and we're really excited about this next chapter in our lives. I hope, in time, you can find it in your heart to be happy for us. The baby will be lucky to have an uncle like you. Take care." I stared at the letter for a few moments, the words spinning in my head. I felt the anger rise in me, but I didn't know what to do with it. It was like a switch flipped in my brain. Before I even realized what I was doing, I grabbed my phone and unblocked Linda's number. My hand was shaking, but I dialed her number. It rang twice before she picked up. "Hello?" Linda's voice sounded strangely calm, as if everything were normal between us. I didn't waste any time. "Listen, you bitch," I snapped. "I just read your stupid letter. Are you seriously trying to make me feel something for you, Alex, and your little family now?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, as if she was trying to collect her thoughts. "Look, I know this isn't easy," she started, her voice softer now, "but I wasn't having it." "Not easy? You think I'm supposed to just be happy for you and Alex? You're out of your damn mind." I spat, my voice rising with every word. "You tore apart everything we had, Linda. You and my brother. And now you think I'm going to be some kind of doting uncle to your kid? Are you delusional?" "I didn't mean for it to be like this," she replied, her voice wavering. "I never wanted to hurt you." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You never wanted to hurt me? Really? You've been sleeping with my brother behind my back for months, and you didn't want to hurt me? Don't kid yourself, Linda. You, Alex, and my parents, all of you can go rot in hell." I could hear her take in a sharp breath, the words clearly stinging, but I didn't care. "I won't be a part of your messed up little family, and I'm not going to pretend like this baby is anything but a reminder of your betrayal." There was a long silence. I could practically hear her on the other end, trying to hold it together. Finally, she spoke again, quietly. "I really hoped you'd be okay with this in time." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "Well, you hoped wrong. It's not happening, Linda. And as for your baby, I hope you can find someone else to play the part of the family man, because it won't be me." Before she could respond, I ended the call. I didn't care if she had more to say. I had said everything I needed to. I threw my phone down on the couch, pacing back and forth, the adrenaline of the call still coursing through me. It wasn't my proudest moment, but for the first time in months, I felt like I had finally spoken my truth. That night, after the call with Linda, everything started to feel too much to handle. I knew what I had to do: leave. I couldn't stay in this city anymore. The memories, the constant reminders of everything that had gone wrong. It was suffocating. I needed a fresh start, a place where I could rebuild, far from Linda, Alex, and my toxic family. Without wasting any more time, I picked up the phone and called my supervisor. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been thinking, and I've decided to transfer to Seattle." There was a brief silence before my supervisor spoke, sounding almost relieved. "Oh wow, that's okay. Honestly, I think that's a good idea. The whole situation has been a bit, well, let's just say it's been difficult for everyone here. If you're sure about it, I'll fast-track the paperwork." I could hear the relief in his voice, and for the first time in a while, I felt like I was making a decision that would be good for me. "Yeah, I'm sure. I need to get out of here." By the time we hung up, everything was set in motion. By the next morning, the transfer was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up and leave, which felt both like a relief and an overwhelming task. But as soon as I hung up, I knew it was the right decision. Word spread fast, though. Within hours, I started getting calls and messages. My parents, as expected, didn't take it well. It wasn't long before they showed up unannounced, banging on my apartment door. I could hear them outside, arguing. "Open the door, Marvin. We need to talk." My mother's voice rang out, high-pitched with desperation. I took a deep breath and walked to the door. Opening it slowly, I saw them standing there, their faces twisted in anger and hurt. "What do you want?" I said calmly, standing firm. My mother's eyes welled up with tears. "You're abandoning us, Marvin. You're leaving your family behind. You're throwing everything away." "I'm not throwing anything away," I replied, keeping my voice steady, even though I could feel the pressure mounting in my chest. "I'm just leaving this town, 'cause you two breathe the same air as I do, and that makes me sick." My father, always the one to escalate things, stepped forward, his face red with fury. "Selfish. This is immature. You can't just run away from your problems like this. You owe it to your family to stay and fix things." I didn't even flinch. "Oh, to the family, the same family that stabbed me in the back, the same parents who sided with the brother who was screwing my girlfriend behind my back. You two disgust me. Tell me honestly, am I really your kid or am I adopted?" I turned away from them, heading back toward my packed boxes and the small amount of progress I'd made in organizing my things. The tension in the room was thick, and I could feel the anger building up behind me. "Marvin," my mother called out, her voice trembling with emotion. "Don't you understand? You're going to regret this. Family is everything. You'll see what you've lost. You'll see how much you hurt us." I closed my eyes for a second, trying to steady my breath. When I opened them again, I was calm, almost detached. "Goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Dad. Don't call me for your funeral." Before they could say anything more, I reached for my phone and dialed the police. "I need help," I said when the dispatcher answered. "My parents are here, violating a restraining order." Within minutes, the officers arrived, and I didn't have to say much more. They spoke briefly with my parents, who were yelling, trying to justify their actions. "He's our son," my father shouted. "You can't just let him go like this." The officers remained professional, though, guiding them toward the door. "We'll have to ask you to leave, ma'am, sir," one of the officers said, his voice firm but polite. As they were escorted out, my mother's voice rang out one last time. "You'll regret this, Marvin. You'll see what you've lost." I didn't respond. I just stood in the doorway, watching them go. When the door closed behind them, I leaned against it for a moment, letting out a slow breath. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I turned around, taking one last look at my apartment. "Goodbye, everything," I muttered under my breath, and then I went back to packing, feeling strangely lighter than I had in weeks. Alex's reaction was a different kind of blow. Instead of confronting me face to face like I half expected, he took to social media. A few days after my parents showed up at my apartment, I logged into my accounts, and there it was, a long post on Alex's profile. I wasn't surprised. I knew he'd try to make himself the victim, but seeing it in writing made it feel even worse. The post began with a statement about how some people just can't handle seeing others happy. He talked about how he and Linda were focused on building their future and that they had chosen to rise above the hate and negativity surrounding them. He mentioned how their new family was all that mattered now, and that they were moving forward with love, joy, and positivity in their hearts. It didn't take much for me to realize who this was aimed at. It was obvious. He was throwing out his carefully crafted image of innocence and joy, trying to paint me as the one in the wrong. He even had the nerve to call out haters in his post, as if he was some kind of martyr caught in a storm of judgment. I sat there, staring at the screen, a mix of anger and disbelief building up inside me. I couldn't help but notice how many people were commenting in support of him. The likes were pouring in, and the comments echoed praise for him and Linda. Some people called them a beautiful couple, while others wrote about how they admired how they were handling everything with such grace. I felt a bitter sting as I read through the comments, seeing people who had no idea what had really happened, blindly supporting Alex. It hurt more than I cared to admit. But deep down, I knew it was just a facade. He wasn't the victim here. He was a liar. He was the one who had betrayed me, who had crossed every line and destroyed not just my life, but his own family as well. Despite the anger bubbling up inside me, I forced myself to take a step back. I reminded myself that their opinions didn't matter. The people who were commenting didn't know the truth. They didn't know the pain I had been through, the way Alex had torn everything apart, or how he'd taken what was mine without a second thought. They didn't know how long it had taken me to even begin to heal. And yet, here they were, celebrating him as if he were some kind of hero. I took a deep breath, put my phone down, and walked away from it. I knew that engaging with any of them would only drag me down further. I wasn't going to let them have that power over me. I had my own life to rebuild, and no matter how many likes and comments Alex's post got, I would never be a part of the lies he was telling. It was hard not to let the anger consume me, but in the end, I told myself that they didn't know the truth, and they never would. What mattered now was my future, not theirs. I was moving on, whether they liked it or not. Linda's response took me by surprise. After our intense phone conversation, I didn't expect her to react the way she did. I figured she'd just keep playing the victim, maybe making more posts about how unfair everything was. But, as Maria later told me, my words had hit her harder than I realized. It all started when Maria reached out to me one afternoon. She'd been keeping me in the loop about Linda and Alex's life since I'd cut off contact with her, and she'd become an unexpected ally, offering me a perspective I hadn't been expecting. It was clear Maria had her own reservations about her sister's choices, but she loved her nonetheless and still tried to keep the peace within the family. This time, though, the tone of her message was different. Linda's a wreck, Maria told me over the phone. She's been crying non-stop since you called her. I don't think she expected you to lash out like that. She's really struggling with it. I could hear the frustration in Maria's voice, the disbelief that her sister, who had so carefully crafted this life with Alex, was suddenly unraveling. What do you mean? Is she seriously blaming me for this? I asked, my mind racing. I just unloaded everything I'd been holding back during that phone call with Linda, and part of me expected her to twist it, to spin it into something that made her look innocent. No, Maria said softly. She's not blaming you, not anymore. She's actually, well, she admitted to me that what she and Alex did was terrible. I don't know if she really realized the depth of what it meant until now, but she said she feels like she's trapped in this mess. I paused for a moment, absorbing her words. Trapped? She and Alex made their bed. They can lie in it. I know, Maria replied, her voice heavy with concern, but Linda's scared. She's been talking about how she thought Alex was going to be this stable partner for her, but now that she's pregnant, she's freaking out. She told me she doesn't feel secure. Alex isn't financially stable like Marvin was. She said she doesn't know how they're going to make it work. That hit me harder than I thought it would. Linda's words about the future with Alex didn't seem as confident as they had before. I'd always known that Alex was reckless, that he didn't have the same grounding or resources I did. But hearing Linda admit it to Maria, and knowing she had doubts about their future together, made me realize how much of a mess they were both in. She's really scared, Maria continued. She keeps saying that she's stuck. She says she thought Alex would step up, but now she's not so sure. I couldn't help but feel a small sense of vindication, even though I knew it wasn't going to fix anything. Linda had spent so long convincing herself that she was making the right choices, that she was in control. But now, faced with the reality of her decisions, the weight of the situation seemed to be too much for her to bear. I don't know what to say to her, Maria, I said, shaking my head. She brought this all on herself. I'm not going to be her safety net, and I'm definitely not going to pretend like everything's fine between us. I get it, Maria replied, but she's really struggling, and I don't think she knows what to do. I think she's starting to realize that she screwed up. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to tell Maria that Linda deserved whatever came her way, that this was just the consequences of her actions. But another part of me felt a strange kind of pity for her. She'd never been as strong as she tried to appear, and now she was facing the harsh reality of the choices she'd made. I don't know if I can help her, I said quietly. She's done too much damage. I understand, Maria said softly. I'm just telling you because I think it might help to know that she's not as confident as she was. She's scared about the future. That was all Maria said on the matter. After hanging up, I sat for a while, processing everything. Linda's breakdown didn't bring me any satisfaction. It didn't undo what they had done, but it did remind me that things weren't as perfect as they'd seemed for her and Alex. They had built a house of cards, and it was starting to crumble. My cousin Brenda, bless her, offered to help me pack and also filled me in on some family drama I hadn't heard about. She told me that my aunt, my mother's sister, had gotten into a heated argument with my mom, accusing her of always favoring Alex while pushing me aside. According to Brenda, my aunt even went as far as to say that my parents were now facing the fallout from their years of favoritism. I have to admit, it felt like a bit of a relief to finally hear someone call them out on their behavior. As for the legal situation, my lawyer reassured me that my move wouldn't impact the ongoing case. We're still pressing forward with charges against Alex for violating the restraining order and the assault accusations he made against me. My lawyer is confident that the judge will see through Alex's claims, especially given his history of violating the restraining order. The fact that I'm relocating across the country should also help to show that I'm not a threat to Alex, which might work in my favor and help get his charges dropped. And then, finally, I left town. It feels surreal to be sitting here in Paris, a city that always seemed like a dream, and yet, here I am, living a life I never imagined I'd have. The past few years have been full of twists and turns I never saw coming. I left the chaos behind, the constant reminder of family ties that were more suffocating than supportive, and now, I'm on the verge of starting something new. 3 years later, the sun was beginning to dip low in the Paris sky, casting a soft glow over the Seine as I stood at the altar, waiting for Elise. The chapel was small and intimate, just the way we wanted it. I could feel the quiet hum of excitement in the air as a few close friends took their seats, and the soft murmur of the city beyond seemed to fade as I focused on the moment ahead. The vows we'd written for each other were still fresh in my mind, but my thoughts kept drifting to the empty space where my family should have been. The phone in my pocket buzzed, pulling me back into the moment. It was a message from my mother. I knew what it was before I even opened it. I had blocked her number, but somehow, she still found a way to reach out. I stared at the screen for a moment before swiping it away. Elise won't be long, my friend Paul, who had flown in from the States to be with me, said with a sympathetic smile. You. Okay. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my voice wavering. Yeah, just thinking. Paul gave me a knowing look. About your family? I took a deep breath, then nodded again. I haven't heard from them in years. Not that it matters. They tried to reach out after everything that happened. My mom, did they apologize? Paul interrupted gently, knowing how hard this all was for me. Yeah, my mom said they were sorry, that they missed me and wanted to fix things. But I've heard it all before, you know? I'm done. I'm not going to keep opening the door only for them to slam it in my face again. I paused, taking a steadying breath, then continued. They're not going to be here. And as much as it hurts, it's the right decision. Elise and I are starting our life together, and I can't keep letting them drag me back into the past. Paul looked at me for a moment before giving a soft chuckle. Sounds like Elise has really helped you find yourself. I smiled, a genuine smile this time. She has. She's everything I never knew I needed. Calm, steady, strong. She's been there for me, even when I didn't think I deserved it. Paul nodded approvingly. She sounds amazing. And you deserve that, you know? You've been through hell, man. It's time for the new chapter. Just then, the doors of the chapel opened, and Elise appeared, radiant in her dress, her face filled with love and determination. I stood taller, a sense of peace washing over me. This was the moment that mattered, the only one that mattered now. As she walked toward me, the weight of everything I had left behind seemed to lift, and I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. Months passed, and as I settled into this new chapter with Elise, I couldn't help but hear bits and pieces about Linda and Alex's downfall. It wasn't hard to ignore the whispers, but the more I heard, the less I felt any sympathy. They had rushed into their relationship, and it hadn't taken long for cracks to form. One evening, Maria messaged me, letting me know that Linda had cheated on Alex with a businessman she met through work. Apparently, it didn't take long for her to lose interest in the life she had built with him. She's just like she was before, Maria said, almost resigned in her tone. She was never really happy. She only pretended to be. And now she's messed things up again. I couldn't help but think of how their relationship had started. I'd seen it from the beginning. The rushed wedding, the lies, the betrayal. I had known in my gut it would never last. And sure enough, it hadn't. I guess Linda thought she could find stability in Alex, but it was clear that stability wasn't enough to keep her from making the same mistakes. Some people never learn, I replied quietly to Maria. She didn't argue. She knew I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just couldn't bring myself to feel bad for someone who had caused so much pain. Not for me, not for Alex, and not for anyone they had hurt along the way. Do you feel sorry for him at all? Maria asked after a long pause. I thought about it for a moment. I don't know if I would say I feel sorry for him. I mean, I don't wish ill on anyone, but he got into a mess of his own making. He knew what he was getting into when he chose to be with her. Yeah, I get that, Maria responded. I just wish he'd seen it coming sooner. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the quiet street outside. In the end, they both made their own choices. Now they have to live with them. It was true. Linda and Alex had both chosen this path, and whatever happened now was on them. I had my own life to focus on, and Elise was by my side, helping me build something real, something that wasn't tainted by the past. That was all that mattered. I'm not angry anymore. There's just this quiet peace that's settled in me, a calm I've never known before. With Elise by my side, I feel like I've finally found the happiness I've been searching for. We're in Thailand now, on our honeymoon, and every moment here has felt like a dream. We've spent our days exploring vibrant markets, lounging on pristine beaches, and savoring delicious food. Simple things that feel so right. Looking back at everything that happened, I can honestly say that I'm free. Free from the weight of the past. Free from the toxic relationships and manipulations that used to consume me. With Elise, I found someone who understands me, who brings out the best in me. She's my partner, my love, my future. My family isn't here, and they never will be. They don't deserve to be part of this journey, but I've come to realize that I don't need them. What matters now is the life I'm building with Elise, the love we share, the adventures we're having, and the future we're excited to create together. So here we are, on our honeymoon, in one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I'm content. I've let go of everything that held me back, and I'm embracing the life ahead. And for the first time in a long time, I can honestly say I'm truly happy, happier than I ever imagined I could be. This is just the beginning, and I can't wait to see where the next chapter takes us. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.